Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since we made a video, but we're getting back on the grind. Today we're going to be talking all things Fulham and Bournemouth with Jack from the Fulhamish pod. We're going to be talking about how Fulham could beat Bournemouth and how Bournemouth can beat Fulham. Make sure you subscribe down below because we're going to be doing lots more videos like this with your favourite content creators from every team that Bournemouth are going to play this season. How are you doing there, mate?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on, and very much excited for the game.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a big one. Make sure you guys follow Jack over on TikTok. There's his handle. And then the Fulhamish pod over on Twitter there. Give him a listen. Lots of good stuff. But if we get into it, it was a massive game for you on Boxing Day. How did it go? What went well?
Well, I mean, we came into it. So we've been on a little bit of a good run against the top teams. Point against Liverpool, point against Arsenal, point against Tottenham, 3 against Brighton. We then followed all of that up with a 0-0 draw against Southampton. And it was kind of like, oh, God, here we go. And we had a few injuries as well. So to be honest with you, we weren't overly optimistic going into this Chelsea game. And I think for the first kind of 10, 15 minutes, those concerns, kind of came to fruition. Chelsea started the game strong. We were forced into a new formation. And I think that kind of showed we looked a little bit, out of depth in midfield. They seemed to have the ball so much, but we adapted throughout the game. And by the end of it, I thought we were really good value. The second half, we were really strong. And, it's the first time Fulham have won at the Bridge in my lifetime. It's the first time they've won there since 1979 or something like that. So just a really, really enjoyable game of football and a moment that, we need to kind of relish and enjoy. But obviously with the nature of the Premier League, you constantly be thinking about a result for too long, especially in this winter period. Game on Boxing Day, now another game on the 29th, and it's now, I guess, all attention onto Bournemouth.
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of the problem as well. Like, you get a massive result against a team like Chelsea, but if in the next game you drop points, it's kind of all for nothing. Do you think you're going to stick with that? You played a 5-back against Chelsea, right? Do you think you're going to stick with that or go back to a 4-back?
I think we'll stick with a 5. Marco done his press conference today, and the injuries that we had are still there. Sander Berge and Emil Smith-Rowe being the 2 big ones in midfield, meaning that we're very light in that area, just playing Sasha Lukic, Andreas Pereira. And I think because we adapted in that Chelsea game so well and in the end obviously came out of a really good result, and given the short turnarounds in games, I think it's going to kind of be a little bit of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we'll stick with that 5 out of possession, and then in possession kind of go to a 4 with Robertson going a little bit further forward, just to try and create more problems down the left-hand side. But yeah, I think that the 5, that's what you should expect. I'd be very surprised if we went back to a 4, given we haven't got many midfield options.
Yeah, makes sense. We'll just quickly go over the Bournemouth result, which was absolutely rubbish. Like, on Boxing Day as well, like, come on, it was utterly boring, to be honest with you. Both sides didn't really create much, didn't look like scoring. We didn't look ourselves, really. The thing is, I'm not really sure what's going on with Bournemouth's form at the moment, because we just beat United 3-0 away. But if you look at before that, we drew 1-1 with West Ham, who I would say have been struggling this season, although they've just got 3 points against Saints. Before that, we did beat Ipswich 2-1, but both those goals came, I think, 85th minute or later. Same as you, late show, but it's not, I don't want to sound like a downer because we are sitting in 6th place, but it's not been overly convincing in the last 4 games. And that Palace game was really an embodiment of that. But we'll see how it goes, because I feel like, especially against Fulham, we're quite similar teams. We should both play well, and we'll see how the game turns out. But if we look at how Fulham can beat Bournemouth, and the main man really is Anthony Robinson, surely.
Yeah, Anthony Robinson has been fantastic for us this season. He's shown glimpses over the last few years of one aspect of his game being really good and then other aspects of the game kind of lacking a little bit. This season, it seems to all be coming together. Defensively, he's been probably our best defensive player so far this season, going up to Anfield and defending Salah really well, playing Arsenal and defending Saka really well. He's really good in those one-on-ones situations. He knows when to step up and win the ball, and he seems to have a knack of if an opposition make a mistake, he's on it like a flash, and he'll win the ball back and then he'll transition and bring it forward. And then his final delivery has improved massively so much this season. always putting, really good balls across the box. Sometimes we don't have the players there, but the intent is always there. And near enough everything Fulham do come down that left-hand side with him and Alex Iwobi, who's having a fantastic season as well. So I think that, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're not going to constantly try and put everything over onto the right-hand side, although Timothy Castagna is more than capable himself. I think, everything will be going over onto that left-hand side, trying to create overloads, trying to, as you said, both teams are going to push for the game, have lots of possession. And as a result of that, gaps will form. And, Anthony Robinson is probably our best player in terms of how can we exploit those gaps.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking about this with JCC, who's also a Fulham fan, and we were saying Milos Kerkez and Anthony Robinson are both kind of similar in the fact that in the last year they've really come on, and at one point you would have said they were both really good attacking, but perhaps not so defending. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say so, and I think that you're right with Kerkez both having fantastic seasons, and I think as well the way football is played now, especially the way that Iraola and the way that Silva want to play, is it's expansive, it's attractive football, and the modern day fullback isn't somebody who just sits in a 4-4-2 and defends. You need to be explosive. You need to be able just to run the channels and basically be another attacking option. Yeah. And both of those players, Kerkez and Robinson, are the epitome of what you want a modern day fullback to be. And I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if in the summer you see the top clubs, if you will, eyeing up both of those players as potential replacements, because they're both what you would want out of a modern day defender.
Yeah, definitely, mate. You've already sort of mentioned it with Marco Silva's adaptability against Chelsea, but generally, is it a big thing this season that you can sort of change mid-game?
Yeah, Marco Silva, there aren't enough words to describe how much Fulham fans love Marco Silva. When he came in the Championship season, there was a little bit of scepticism. Obviously, he had a bit of a dodgy track record with leaving clubs for other clubs with loyalty. He left Watford for Everton, and that didn't go too well. But I think he's kind of learnt from those mistakes, and he's really developed as a coach in terms of getting the best out of individuals, even if the collective, you've got the collective isn't great, but the individuals, sorry, I've worded that horribly wrong. Even if you haven't got the individuals, the collective are really strong together. And you look at this Fulham team, and there aren't really many standout players, if you will. There aren't many players that, jump off the page as being these really, attractive footballers, although they are. But it's more the unit that he has been able to create. And part of that unit has been with bringing players in, improving our depth as well, so that we've got options off the bench. That's something that we've really lacked in the first and even the second season in the Premier League. In the third season, we now have all these options off the bench. Harry Wilson came off the bench against Chelsea. Rodrigo Muniz came off the bench against Chelsea, and they both scored. Harry Wilson scored that brace against Brentford as well. So we're blessed with all of these options off the bench. And I think that, there's not so much of an onus on one player being the main man this season. We've seen that in previous years when we've had Alexander Mitrovic and João Palhinha. We've lost two really key players, but if anything, we seem to be getting better. And I think that's because, as I said, the onus isn't on one individual to shine, just all the team knowing their roles, doing their jobs, and just forming a really good Premier League side.
Yeah, definitely. I think we are kind of similar to that in a way, in that, last season we weren't, because Solanke was sort of the main man. But even then, Solanke wouldn't be able to do what he wanted to do without, the creators behind him, without Ryan Christie being excellent. And I think this season especially is absolutely, for us as well, a team. We don't really have one standout. In the attack, we've got Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, Clive, but even all the way back, our defence is so important with Zabani, and the midfield, obviously, Lewis Cook and Ryan Christie. We really are a bit of a collective too. The thing I might worry about, because you're talking about how you're so adaptable to different game states, whereas I don't feel like we are really. Andoni Iraola clearly has a philosophy of pressing and being direct. And I was reading about this on The Athletic, we sort of have a problem with holding leads. We're really good at coming back, and also really good at being out of possession, getting the ball back and going straight up. We're not really that good at being in possession for really long periods, and we're not really that good at holding leads. If we go 1-0 up against you early, I wouldn't be that confident because you know how to attack us and change to adapt to that. Whereas I feel like we sort of have one philosophy and stick to it. I think I trust Iraola with the subs. He's good with the subs. But at the moment, we've got quite a few injuries as well. We've got quite a few wingers out. But he does sort of seem to have one thing that works. And sometimes if it isn't working, we find it hard to adapt. But I'm not criticising him too much because, we are sixth. The thing I will also talk about, our problem that is our lack of creativity at the moment. Because Justin Kluivert's suspended. He's just got 5 yellow cards. So he's suspended for this match, which is a bit annoying. Tavernier's injured, so he's our other main creator. Tavernier, most chances created this season, and for us, obviously, and then Kluivert's 4th. And I just feel like that could be an issue because against Palace, it was 0-0. We didn't really create anything. Felt like that was a consequence of Tavernier not being there. Dango Ouattara, Antoine Semenyo felt like they struggled. So, yeah. Especially with your defence, would you say your defence is quite strong?
I'd say so. We're without our main right back, Kenny Tete, who's been fantastic. He's out injured for a couple of months now. So we've got Timothy Castagna, who's slotted in and really done well. And especially if we're going to play a back 5 with Anderson, Bassi, and Issa Diop, who's come on leaps and bounds this season. He's been absolutely unbelievable. And I think he's someone that, if you weren't a Fulham fan, you wouldn't really know just how good of a season he's having. But he's been absolutely incredible, and he's the reason why, well, not the sole reason, but he's one of the reasons why we are up in 8th. And defensively, he's really strong. With your talking about Bournemouth's lack of creativity, and in a weird way, I kind of can see similarities with Fulham. I was talking about the collective rather than the individual, and while that's true, we don't have a goal scorer who has got more than 5 goals so far this season, and we're almost into January now. Don't get me wrong, it's going well. We're in 8th place, but we've got Iwobi and Jimenez on 5, Wilson's on 4, Muniz and Smith Rowe's on 3. So you haven't got someone who's week in, week out putting goals in the back of the net. And I do wonder from a Fulham point of view. Obviously, there's all talk about Europe and all this sort of stuff like that. I'm sure there is with yourselves, and there are with lots of other teams in that really congested pile. For me, I think that might be Fulham's downfall in the end, is not having someone who you can rely on to kind of drag you out of the mud in those really kind of narrow games. For example, that Southampton game we played on last week, 0-0. Southampton didn't really do an awful lot. We had loads of the ball. We just couldn't find that killer edge and that final move and that goal. And I do think that, everyone wants a 15, 20 Premier League goal a season striker. Everyone wants that. But I do sometimes think, if we still had somebody like Alexander Mitrovic, I dread to think where we would be.
Yeah, definitely. He was so good. It's such a shame that he went to Saudi Arabia. But there we are. You've kind of touched upon it already, but going to move on to how Bournemouth can really try and exploit this Fulham team and get into it. And lot of big injury list at the moment. Who's the biggest name that's out at the moment?
I think the biggest name that people will assume would be Emil Smith Rowe, because he's probably the biggest name at the club. But to be honest with you, he's very hit and miss. If things are ticking and things are going well, he's at the centre of it. But again, in those games where he's a bit of a dogfight and you need someone to drag you through the mud, he sometimes can go missing. So I'd say our biggest miss at the moment is probably Sander Berge, in the way that he just sits. And he's adapted to the João Palhinha role fantastically, of being able to kind of break things up. But he also gives an additional layer of transition that Palhinha maybe didn't. He's not afraid to drive forward with the ball and try and thread a needle with a pass and create things. So I'd say Sander Berge is going to be a huge miss for us. Obviously, as I said, we're playing a new system with a back 5, and while we reap the rewards of that against Chelsea, it is a new system, and it's going to be the exact same team 3 days later. And I do worry that with our thin squad at the moment and just the sheer amount of games that are being played, are we going to be a little bit leggy, and is that going to cost us?
Yeah, in fairness, we have quite a few injuries as well, which is weird because we felt like we had like a really big squad at the start of the season and kind of a squad with a lot of players of similar quality. But Tavernier, Sinisterra out, obviously Clive suspended. So that's like 3 really good creative sort of wingers. Snessie's out, but it's not really a big deal because you've got Howson. But like Smith might still be out for this one at right back. Araujo's already out, so that just leaves us with Max Aarons, who hasn't really played a lot. But yeah, I think you're right. Sander Berge could be a really big loss for you because I think the midfield battle is sort of one that we need to look at winning. Because I think our midfield is probably the most talked about part of our season at the moment with Ryan Christie and Lewis Cook. It feels like that's the hipster shout for people to sort of go on Twitter and say, oh, they're so underrated. And I feel like at this point, they're not really underrated anymore. But they are still so, so good. Also, Tyler Adams is finally not injured. And he's actually really good when he plays football, as it seems. So I could see maybe he starts this game. But whoever starts, it's going to be really strong in midfield, winning the ball back and progressing it straight away with that direct football that Iraola likes. So, yeah, I think midfield could be where we win this match. So, will it be Sasa Lukic and who else?
It'll be Lukic and Pereira as the midfield 2. And then when we transition, Robertson will effectively play as a winger and Iwobi kind of tucks in to kind of make that midfield free up.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's probably that's what happened against Chelsea. So I imagine that's probably what we'll do the same. Alex Iwobi can kind of play a number of positions for us. So the key man for us in the middle of that park is Sasa Lukic, who again is just having such not a quiet season, but he's just going about his business and doesn't really get many plaudits from anybody else. But he keeps Fulham ticking, and he's so good at winning the ball back, playing in transition, and it was a really good ball over to Rodrigo Muniz for the winner at the bridge. So he's going to be a really key player for us if we are going to get anything out of the game.
Yeah, definitely. The last point you pretty much almost touched upon earlier, but yeah, just a lack of goal scorer, you say, but Jimenez, I mean, what's he got 5 this season? It's still a respectable amount, no?
Yeah, so Jimenez is on 5. Muniz got onto 3 the other day off the bench. The problem isn't necessarily, well, I guess it kind of is the goal scoring because he's got 5, and it is a respectable amount, but it's more just the nature of his game and how he plays. Same with Muniz as well. They've got moments in them where they can pull something out of nothing. Jimenez, especially being the striker that he once was at Wolves, you always have that quality. But he's somebody who can go missing in games, and we can find ourselves just kind of kicking up to him at times, and he's nowhere near it, and he's completely off it. And what we often have been beneficiaries of is having someone who's a bit of a target man, holds the ball up, brings others into play, links it all together, and Raul Jimenez sometimes can really struggle with that. Rodrigo Muniz, I think, is slightly better at that. He's a little bit more of a bit of a kamikaze footballer. You don't really know what you're going to expect from him. He's a bit of a battering ram. He'll just kind of chase after everything and throw himself about. And I prefer that as a footballer just because it's something that can cause defenders headaches. And even if he doesn't necessarily get on the score sheet because he's occupying players, it means that you've then got gaps for our other creative players, the likes of Iwobi, the likes of Robinson, the likes of Harry Wilson to get involved and find those pockets and create chances themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'd say the stats say that we sort of is similar to you in the fact that we have a lack of a guaranteed goal scorer, but for us, maybe not for you, but for us, I see it more as a strength that our goals can come from anywhere. That it can come from Evan Nilsson or it can come from Semenyo. But I see what you mean. Like, Evan Nilsson is a focal point for us, and he can be that guy that holds up the ball. Whereas if Jimenez isn't doing that, I see how that can 100% be a problem, especially with both our centre backs and both our centre mids being really strong. Jimenez could really get pocketed and not see much of the game. Perhaps we'll see Muniz come on later on in the game.
Yeah, I think the thing for me with it is there's a reason why the majority of our attacks come down the left-hand side is because we always have 2 options there of Robinson and Iwobi. And basically, if you're able to stop us down that flank, we really struggle. We really struggle to create because our focal point, our number 9, struggles to get into games, and our right-hand side is still good. You know, Harry Wilson's a fantastic footballer, and Castagna can more than hold his own, but we're so strong. I think something like 65% of our attacks all come down the left-hand side. So it's a real kind of evident that that's the focal area that we want to, look to create. And I think that if we had, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a goal scorer, but if we just had more of a presence up top who can, as I said, hold the ball up and do things off the ball and link play, I think that Fulham would be even higher than they are. But I'm not going to complain too much. We're literally in 8th and it's December.
Definitely. I feel like that's the same with us in 6th. And you can say what you want, but we still sit in 6th. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you check out Jack's stuff. I'll put all the links in the description so you can just shoot right over. Make sure you subscribe for future content every week. We're going to be looking at all these Bournemouth games. And yeah, leave a like, comment what you think the score will be, and I'll catch you guys later.